This is October 14, 1999, with Bill Nowlin.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know, why doesn't that little light flicker?
Which one is that?
The one I have, I wouldn't worry about it if it's working.
It's working.
The one I have, you can tell when it's working because the light reacts to volume levels.
Oh. It might be because I don't have it on voice response.
Yeah.
In any event, yeah, it has been working.
Yeah.
Check that every night. Not that I could do anything but the day's work. But when did you guys first have direct contact with Alan Lomax?
I couldn't remember the exact year, but it was fairly early on. My recollection is that it was probably around 73, maybe. I don't think it was the first couple of years, but soon afterwards we got in touch with him, and we were talking about possibility of working with some of his early field recordings. There's something I could look at that might give me a better idea, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. It would be it'll be in there.
Big Lomax file.
Okay, well that's where you'll find it if it's in there. We certainly knew of his work. Hanging around the Library of Congress, you couldn't help but come across his name often, and I guess we probably asked if he was still in New York, and made a call fairly early on. We talked to him about doing an album of Hobart Smith and Texas Gladden. It was actually supposed to, it was his idea to do a split album, sort of almost half side by each. And we said, great, good idea, and so forth. And we had the music mastered at the Library of Congress. And then we waited for his notes. We mastered a lot of their stuff. And then he was going to make the final sequence and write the notes to it.
And he had the tapes on deposit at the archives?
Yeah, he did the recording as an employee for the Library of Congress, so they're actually their tapes, not his.
Right.
Which sometimes he forgets. But the library has had kind of a remarkable attitude about public access, sometimes making it, in fact, very easy for a lot of people.
How did that project get named out of all the stuff he had?
Why did we pick that one?
Texas Gladden, Hobart Smith.
Well, I think we'd already done the Aunt Molly Jackson, maybe on our own. That may have been why we contacted him, though. It may have been that when we were working on that, we contacted him to say we were working on that and ask if he had any other pictures or something. That's probably likely. And I don't know. It may be that he suggested it. It may be that when we were talking to him about Aunt Molly Jackson, he said, who was the greatest singer that I ever recorded from that region was Texas Gladden. And was their brother-in-law or whatever he was, would make an album. And so, we went ahead and we spent what was for us a lot of money at the time, maybe a couple $100, in making these master tapes. And they still exist someplace around here. I had them done on 10-inch reels, which was a big deal for us then because we were usually using the cheaper and, more home audio market-oriented 7-inch reels. Our first couple albums were both on 7-inch reels.
Was working with Lomax a big deal for you?
Yeah.
In the 70s, he was already pretty legendary.
Oh, sure. Sure, but, we were definitely very respectful, and I don't recall being scared the first time we met him, and he welcomed us. Into his apartment. At that time, I don't know whether it was really his residence or basically an apartment that had been converted into an office. I really don't know that, but it was like in the 90s, as I recall, in West Side, New York, someplace kind of near Columbia, but not right near. But it wasn't like an office building such as where he's at now. It was a kind of residential unit, an apartment. And it was just packed with tapes and so forth. And he came in, we talked, so forth. We went out for a bite or something like that. And it was, just welcoming it.
He was warm.
Yeah, he started talking about all these projects. It wasn't like, yeah, okay, let's do this project. It's like, well, then I have this 12-volume set called The Recorded Treasury of Black Music in America, and then I have this, and then I have that. He was just always passionate and enthusiastic about the stuff that he did right up to the end. I mean, right up till he had his stroke, when we had gone down and really gotten involved in the discussions about finally coming to a real comprehensive agreement for the Alan Lomax collection. It was even hard to talk to him about the business details because he wanted to play us snatches of music.
Did he know who you were, or did he demand an introduction?
At that initial point?
A resume of some sort, by which I mean an oral, even an oral resume. Who the hell are you?
Yeah, I don't...
Why do I entrust this to you?
Yeah, no, I don't remember that. I think, we'd already put out a few records, and we were somehow confident in ourselves in a way that might seem strange now, looking back on it. But, we just had this sense that we believed in ourselves and what we were doing in a way that may have been a little naive somehow. But I mean, it seems funny to say it, but I remember people talking to us when we had like 6 or 7 records out, talking about how, we were legendary. I mean, not that we had already accomplished it, but that this was a legend in the making. I mean, it was like these people either somehow intuitively figured that we were going to keep going. I mean, a lot of people would make a few records and, go on to something else.
Other people had no records out.
Yeah, but I mean, even if you had a few records out, there's no reason to think that 29 years later you're going to have 2,000 records out. I mean, it doesn't happen for the most part. But I don't know, it was kind of, a lot of things around that time were different than usual. And a lot of people thought that a lot of things were possible that now maybe people just, would hesitate to undertake. But, we'd gone through the Library of Congress. I guess we probably had, 6, 12 records out, something like that. He'd probably already read about us in Sing Out, some of the record reviews. He'd probably heard from a couple of other people. We probably would have mentioned Joe Hickerson and Alan Jabbour and Archie Green, and maybe Spotswood or something like that. And so he would have recognized those as people that, but it's also quite possible that he was just happy to talk to anybody that showed any interest, because I think so much of the time it was kind of a lonely quest that he was after. I think most of his life, and if as you probably read The Last Cavalier and so forth, his father before him, you depended on a succession of people providing some degree of funding to keep doing what they were going to do any way they could. And we may have just been we may have ended up financing a couple of projects, and that might have been it. And it was just trying to find anybody that would share his enthusiasm. It's still true today to some extent with people any of us meet in life. If you're really passionate about something, I don't. He wasn't at that time ready to give us his entire body of his life's work. Right. That wasn't what we were talking about. We were talking about putting out an album or something. But here he was already pitching us on this 12-volume set. Mm-hmm. And we got into negotiations, and you will see some of that in the file, because I'm sure that relatively early correspondence for that is still in there. It may go back. It may be 5 years later before we picked up and started saving letters on the subject. But we already knew, but then having met him, having his address to write to and so forth, and having him shown some interest, even though he never quite got around to doing all these things. It was just, we knew there was a treasure trove of material there, and it's something we never forgot. Later on we decided, okay, we're going to put out the Woody Guthrie albums from the Library of Congress. Alan Lomax recorded these, and the Lead Belly sessions and so forth. In both cases, we wanted him to participate. In both cases, he said that he was interested, but then he never followed through. And in either the Lomax file or those files, you'll find a couple of letters, but I probably didn't save them all, of, us just saying, listen, we've been waiting for you for, 6 months now. We really want to move this project on. And, even giving him a deadline, that essentially saying we're going to go ahead one way or the other. If you want to write the notes, we'd love to have you write the notes. We'd love to have you, have your creative input here. But if we don't hear from you in the next 60 days, we're going to assume that you've chosen not to.
Who did you use? Guy Lodgton for the Guthrie set?
Geez, I don't remember right now.
Kip Lornell?
Actually, it was Kip and Charles together. But mostly Kip he did the editing on the selections and stuff. Yeah, I guess he probably wrote the notes too, but.
So the material belonged to the library, so you really didn't have to deal with Lomax except as a matter
Right.
of respect.
Well, yeah, but also he was there. He still, if he could talk or write well today, I mean, he still has stuff that he could convey about those trips. I mean, he did do books in the past and so forth, but there would still be memories there that he could bring out. It could have been a nice thing. I mean, he could probably put together a good 40-page thing, telling about how he first ran into this person. Just tell it in a fresh way that he hadn't told for 10, 20 years.
Right. So the Texas Black and Hobart Smith never came to pass because he...
Right, and we would send him like annual reminders. It became, we never knew after a few years that nothing was ever going to happen. But
that's one you didn't go ahead and put out the music for some reason.
No, for some reason we didn't. I don't know why, because we could have. I mean, Mark Wilson knew that kind of music very well, and could easily have identified the songs, their British antecedents, and whatever.
Okay.
He'd tell us what tunings were used, because he played the banjo himself and stuff.
So how did moving further along, how ultimately did the Lomax collection that you've got going now come about?
Well, I just kept in touch. I mean, partly guilt-tripping him about the Gladden Smith thing in this kind of annual letter and so forth, which never worked. But then also, I don't know exactly what... I mean, there were a couple times that I set him up with people, because I was really interested in this thing called the Recorded Treasury of Black Music in the Americas, which is now the series called Deep River of Song that we've started putting out. The first 3 are out. I understand that the New York Times is reviewing 2 or 3 of them this weekend in the Sunday paper. But
the Recorded Treasury, is that a label that who created that label?
That was his name for it, and he had the first 12 albums already programmed. They're from the Library of Congress, they're just there, but he had them already programmed, and he had actual tapes of them. I mean, he was kind of ready to go. And, we made some kind of an offer on them on a per album basis. I can't remember. It might have even been as high as $6,000 or $7,000 an album, and he wanted just a little bit more. And
who gets this money? As you said, he was an employee of the Library of Congress.
Well, yeah.
Negotiations of him asking for an advance.
Well, I know it's kind of weird, but the library never looked for any money themselves, and we didn't really need his permission in a way, except that he made these choices, and he did have something to say.
You can't have him against the project, I suppose, and you won't.
Yeah, it was, it was really his project.
You basically buy his cooperation and his blessing and
his notes and his editing and his name. And,
right.
So forth. And maybe we weren't honed in so much at the time on the fact that, him being a library employee. Yeah, we probably kind of knew it, but the library, I mean, they wouldn't anymore, but back then they would have just let us take the stuff and put it out, and so forth. Some people they're more cautious about than others because of the way that it was accessioned to the library, and I think just in general they're more careful these days than they used to be. They also look at these things as revenue sources now, which they didn't. They didn't even think that way back then.
Okay, so but anyway, I was interested.
That may partly be rivalry with the Smithsonian or something, where they go see the Smithsonian, doing all this stuff and bringing this money in, and they're just,
So he's got this treasury of black music.
Yeah, I set up. I knew I didn't have the time to work. He needed somebody to work with him on it, and that was part of what the money that we would pay him would be for. Probably a good portion of it would be for him to hire an assistant to work with him on really preparing the booklets and the photography and so forth. I mean, right now, that's sort of the way it works. We pay a per album fee, and from that fee they pay for people to edit and write notes and all that type of thing. So it's the same system. It's just that it never happened back then. We never quite came to the agreement. He never found the person that he wanted to work with, or some of the people that I can remember at least 2 people, and I think maybe 3 that went down and had appointments with him. He had a significant drinking problem at this stage, and I know at least one of those people, would have loved to work with him, but he got drunk during the conversation they were having, and maybe got a little bit negative in some of his comments or something. They began to think, well, I'm not sure I want to do this for 6 months, They maybe overreacted, or maybe, some people, for reasons of family experience or whatever, have a very negative attitude about people that, get out of control. So we never found anybody that really clicked. It's sort of too bad, but eventually it happened, in that we eventually did come to this agreement. The final thing, I don't know what happened. It seems like my memory, maybe could be refreshed by looking at the thing, but what my best memory is now is that it's just kind of maybe I hadn't been in touch for 2.5 years or something, and I just got back in touch with a letter. Just said, we'd really love to do this, and it hit him at the right time. Perhaps he was, 80-some years old now, and beginning to think about what he was going to do afterwards. He was very wrapped up in the global jukebox at the time. But, that itself was a sort of a global survey, and maybe he was thinking in terms of big things instead of just, an album here or a project there. He finished his book, I guess, The Land Where the Blues Began. So maybe it hit him just when he'd finished that project. He was going back to the global jukebox, thinking in bigger terms and thinking about posterity. And maybe reflecting on Mo Ash's sale of Folkways and thinking, what should he do with his stuff. That's my impression, is it just hit him at the right time, and so we got invited to come see him, and that he was serious about it. And even then, it took several years, and he went through at least 2 attorneys before settling on the final one. I don't know why. One of them was an old attorney that he'd worked with for 20 or 30 years, and Lomax himself he was making a big commitment. It's his whole life's work, so I don't blame him for.
It was clear at that point. When you sort of reinitiated or renewed contact after a few years, you were talking about everything.
Yeah, we were talking about this one particular thing, but then when we went down and met with him, he started saying, what I really need to do is try to find a place for all my music, and
he brought that up.
Yeah, and we said, well, yeah, told us 20 years ago, we would have said the same thing, that would be great. And he played us, in particular, he played us a lot of Spanish music from what will become the Spanish collection of recordings, none of which are out yet, although there's a volume on Spain that is out. But that was what he played in particular that day, and just 2 hours of him playing, you got to hear this, you got to hear that. And I was in Spain, and this happened, and I had to go underground because the Franco government, didn't like what I was doing, and I was thrown out of the country, and had to go back. And I don't know if he actually got thrown out, but it was that kind of the story's told in there. But it was that kind of a thing. It was a very exciting and dynamic thing. He demonstrated the global jukebox for us and stuff, and we got very enthusiastic about it. And from that point on, I didn't drop the ball for another year or so. I really pursued it and just kept it going, because although it got frustrating, because he finally appointed a lawyer, and that was, oh great, he's got a lawyer now, maybe we can really get something done, and get into these negotiations with the lawyer, go down and have a meeting in New York with him and the lawyer, and then all of a sudden can't get any response from either of them for 2 months or something, and then it's all back to square one. And it's just, it's a tribute to me that I kept on it. I mean, it was really required some perseverance.
Did you ever sense any competition from any other label or any other source? Was anyone but Rounder, as far as you could ever tell, interested in this?
I don't know. I mean, I think that he may have talked, I think in conjunction with the people that he was talking to about the global jukebox, I think sometimes they probably expressed interest in the audio and stuff. I'm sure he talked to Microsoft at some point, and maybe some people at Sony, Columbia. I think he was just doing his usual thing, talking to various possible sources of doing a deal. But I think he was really focused more on the global jukebox, and that's what he was trying to sell actively. Well, this was.
What the hell
it was. It's a long time since I saw that now, and it may have been surpassed even by other things. It may be that nothing's ever going to happen with it, but for drawing from his body of work, I mean, it was using his cantometrics theory and so forth. I mean, he had it basically all on a computer, and he would show us how you could click on a region of the world, and it would come up with some sound recordings, and then he would rate them on certain characteristics, and then, if one of them was nasality or something, then you could connect to other cultures that had songs that used, were high on nasal delivery or something. But it tied in with dance and images of dance, too. So it was all very, it's just all the lines drawn between all the different places and styles of music and dance.
Did he demonstrate this for you?
Yeah. Yeah. If you ever, they'd be happy to show it to you sometime, probably, if you went down to New York wanted to do that. But.
And what's the projection on that? I know this has been written about, but on the Lomax collection.
You mean where? Well, we've got, I think 150 or so. I think we've already assigned numbers to 140. And it's hard to believe there won't be another 10. Maybe even more than that. I mean, we were talking about doing one or two Haitian albums from one of his earliest trips. I think it was like 1935 or something, a pretty early trip. And this just came up over last weekend. I got a note saying, well, we'd like to start working on the Haitian recordings. We think there may be as many as 5 or 10 of them. And that's the first I had any idea that there would be more than 2.
Is your commitment to put out everything?
Basically, yeah.
Not your desire, your commitment.
Both. Well, both.
Okay. All right, fine.
No, we don't have any commitment legally to put out everything. So it's more desire than commitment. It's an informal commitment. They're not making money on these, really. I mean, they're not. It's not like it's to their advantage monetarily to put out extra records. They don't really make much money on them, if any. And they make enough to keep a few people employed. But they're only getting $4,000 an album.
Who do you pay royalties to?
From us. Well, the royalties are split between him and the artists. Okay. And it depends on the nature of the album. It depends on the album. I mean, there's different arrangements. In some cases, there really are artists or estates around, like, the Fred McDowell record that we put out, his widow still exists. And although, you can imagine a bunch of Haitian albums, recorded in 1935, nobody's going to be able to find their heirs and so forth. And so that money will probably be escrowed. If we wanted to, I suppose we could figure out some Haitian, charitable organization to give them to give the money to in behalf of the musicians or something like that, but a music program or whatever. But yeah, there's a split there.
What do you mean by a split?
Well, they're shared. The royalties are shared between him or his family, whatever.
Notwithstanding the publicity, is it feasible? We've talked a lot.
There may not be many royalties because we recoup the $4,000 advance first, and so an album's got to sell, really, 3,000 some copies or so before there will be any royalties due. this period, there's 500 something. That's about $1,000 of royalties due on the McDowell project. I was thinking about his share, but it's more or less 50-50 split, not exactly, but.
But overall, I mean, it's feasible. I've talked a lot about feasibility with all of you, and
Yeah.
this stuff can get carried. You know.
You mean we can survive on it?
Survive. Can put it out.
Yeah.
Survive,
So far it's
10th record in the Italian collection or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering about those. I mean, so far we've put out some of the better selling ones first. The Southern Journey first series has sold pretty well. I mean, some of those albums, we cross-collateralized within that series. It's got 13 albums, but 9 of the 13 would already have broken even on their own. Okay. And I think we're within $224 of the series as a whole, recouping. So I think by the time we generate the next statements in December for the period that just ended in September, there'll be money due on those as a series, and that continues to sell pretty well. I think the Deep River of Song series will sell pretty well. The 2 Cajun volumes will sell. The British stuff, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of British stuff out there, but there's a lot of sort of fans of it, and this isn't just your average British album. The Italian series, it's too early to tell. It's got some good reviews. The secret, to my mind, is to find a number of Italian or Italian-American organizations that might want to, buy 200 or 300 copies for presentations or something like that. We haven't done that yet. But we're, working with libraries and trying to develop subscription plans for different kinds of institutions. We got the Southern Journey to the point that we actually had, I think, someplace between 800 and 900 people that when each volume came out, we just automatically mailed it to them because they had paid up front to subscribe to the whole series.
Were those institutions or individuals?
Combination.
Okay. Who here works on that? Just you, or do you have people on staff?
No, not me. It's, a number of people. Principally Gail McIntosh in the mail order section has developed most of those subscription things. And Bing Broderick in special markets sometimes has tried to get certain things that adopted in some of the mail order catalogs, like wireless and so forth. I mean, they might do the 2 Cajun albums or something. It has to be a kind of a manageable thing for them.
Right. Okay.
To
what
do
special markets? I mean, we're getting off Lomax, but
it's a department that tries to sell to places other than normal record retail stores.
Okay.
So he will be contacting the Nature Company, Starbucks, to get on their compilations.
Okay.
Places like Columbia House for record clubs, which now I guess we're not really dealing with them so much anymore. All the catalogs like wireless and stuff, just sometimes single shot types of things. Maybe contact the John McCutcheon did one album and we got a labor union to buy 1,000 copies of it.
So would he deal with libraries and educational institutions as well?
Well, I think that, he goes to the ALA convention every year and the American Booksellers Association, because those aren't record stores, they're bookstores. Yeah. And, of course, we hope that the internet will help us sell things like the Italian, records that people all over the world, including Italy, may find out about them that way and not have known about them otherwise. I mean, our Italian distributor probably took in 50 copies of each or something. Yeah. Not really much. Yeah. And because, I don't know, they have a preconceived notion that they're not going to sell very well.
Right.
Which will be a self-fulfilling prophecy if that's all they take in.
How you doing?
I didn't expect them to take in hundreds. Something. Do you have some more questions?
I wanted
always, right?
I wanted to move on. I wanted to also ask about the
Yeah.
world. What's it called?
I don't know.
World Folk Song. It's in your catalog.
World Folk Song?
Yeah. World Library of Folk and Primitive Music.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a series of recordings that was originally released as the UNESCO collection. There's sort of 3 series of UNESCO records. This was the first one, and then there have been a couple of other ones since where UNESCO's done deals with EMI and Europe and so forth. These were put out as LPs by a company called Barenreiter in Germany. And I went over to one of the first WOMAXs. Do you know what that is? It's a World Music Expo.
Okay.
It's a thing called WOMAX. It's a European organization. And I went to Berlin, and I met a guy there from the International Institute of Traditional Music in Berlin. And they had a catalog printed up of this stuff, and basically I learned that they had the rights to all these albums and that they weren't out. At the time, we had lost Folkways to, they went their other route with Koch distribution. And so, in a sense, I was looking for more of that kind of music and almost trying to build up a rival set of releases because I thought it was very complementary, the kind of music that Folkways and us had, and there were a lot of synergies in working together. So what I actually did is I went harder after the Lomax collection at this time. That was part of my spur, was having lost Folkways. I went and signed up the 20-volume series of records from the Library of Congress that we could pick and choose among all their 60 or so releases. And I went after this 50-volume set of world music, which was highly respected as some of the best and earliest, but well recorded and well annotated world music stuff. We've got a lot of really nice.
Lomax edited this?
No, he had nothing to do with it.
Okay, I think we're talking about different things.
Maybe did one volume.
Little Library of Book and Primitive Music, and you're talking about what?
Oh, okay.
You're talking about the Anthology of World Music.
I'm talking about, yeah.
20.
Okay.
Okay.
So, well, that's the story about that.
All right.
This is just another series in the Lomax collection,
All right.
and that was first put out as the Columbia World Library. I believe they had maybe 12 volumes that Columbia put out on LP years ago, but he maintains the rights to them, and that was, one of the things we wanted to check on was that was true, and he does. So he had also a few other volumes that they hadn't released, hadn't quite got there yet. Some of them weren't recorded by him. Some of them were recorded by other people. It was he was the editor for that series. Well, he often worked with collaborators, but some of these whole albums, I think the one in Romania, I don't think he actually ever went to Romania. But I think some scholar in Romania presented the music, and it was included as part of that World Library thing.
And now Ken Irwin, also on October 14, 1999. Introduced you on there in your absence. I know that Scott's probably had the most involvement with New Orleans, but have you had a reasonable amount of involvement with developing the records that come out of there and working with the artists, or at least talking about it here?
Not really that much. I think my major contribution was going down early, not early in relation to Scott, but earlier than any of the other folks here, to Louisiana and especially to the Jazz and Heritage Festival, and seeing the talent there and coming back and be very excited. And I think that sort of supporting Scott's previous interest was probably the catalyst for really getting into the New Orleans Master Series and to do a lot more Louisiana music, and particularly New Orleans music. Because it really was an area that we weren't all that familiar with, and there's so many artists down there who perform there and just stay around. There's just a lot of them have been around for years and years, and the idea of career development or exposure, meaning going on the road and playing for less money or the same money, but then having all your travel expenses is just not very exciting.
Right.
Where a lot of them can stay home and, play in New Orleans or the immediate environs and make more money with a lot less difficulty, no worries about, or fewer worries about keeping the band together. So, staying up here, we didn't tend to see a lot of the Louisiana artists.
Was that an inhibiting factor for you in terms of recording them, or did you feel you could get them, help them get out on the road and actually make more money with the product out there?
I think it depended on the artist. I think the latter in some cases, certainly with an Irma Thomas and the Dirty Dozen Brass Band was one that fairly early was interested in getting on the road and getting out more. Whereas some others, we just knew that wasn't, it would be more documentation and perhaps having people hear about the music because of past history of the artist rather than that they get out there and really tour.
How did the Dirty Dozen Brass Band do on the road or in sales? In general terms, I don't know. You're not going to have figures at your fingertips.
I think they did pretty well. I think Scott would be better in that regard.
What about something like the Mardi Gras Indians? Same question. Do you have any idea?
I don't think. They certainly didn't tour very much. And our expectations weren't great, and I don't think those records were very costly. It was more a matter of documentation. And
who else do you consider things that were more a question of documentation down in the New Orleans scene?
I think you'd really do better to speak to Scott, and even Marion on New Orleans.
Yeah, we talked a bit with her as well.
Yeah.
How about Zydeco? Did you have any? And again, I do. Scott, I know wants to talk. He's
right.
Today's not a day. He's home. So,
right.
How about Zydeco? Did you have any involvement in?
I think early on, I think I probably had the initial call from a friend in Western Massachusetts who suggested that we get in touch with the Buckwheat, that he was, really hot at the time. And I think Scott was familiar with him, and that, led to that. A lot of times, if one of us is thinking about somebody and then somebody else comes in at the same time, it sort of puts it over the hump.
Right. Was Buckwheat your first Zydeco signing?
I think we had we probably licensed the Rock and Doopsie. I think the Nick Spitzer was 6009 and the Doopsie was 6012.
And would have been Nick Spitzer, a different type of project. Right?
Yeah.
Not an act. That's what
yeah.
A commercial act, yeah.
And I had done a fair amount of recording during that same trip with Dewey and Dick Spotswood of the Carrier Brothers and one other group. Nothing ever came out, or a couple cuts on compilations, but we had been aware and interested. But I think that the license of the Doopsie was the first Zydeco record.
How many trips did you take down to Louisiana where you recorded people? Did you do much field recording yourself in your early days, or?
It was mainly 2 trips.
Okay, can you recount those somewhat for me? Kind of situate them in time and work through those a little bit, because that's a reminiscence I can't get anywhere from your head.
Yeah. Well, the first trip was I think it was probably only the Louisiana Aces, although on the way down, if I'm not mistaken, we probably did John Lee. We stopped off and recorded him in Alabama. I remember stopping off, and he had this terrible guitar, and we just felt we couldn't record him like that, and went to try to rent an acoustic guitar, and couldn't do so at a reasonable amount, and ended up buying an acoustic guitar, which was cheaper than renting it for 3 days. And John Lee just wasn't really into it. I remember he was, he said he had to work late. I think his job was raking sand traps in a golf course. And he kept telling us he had to work, and turned out that he was sneaking off with some woman during the day. And here we were, we had driven, hundreds of miles, thousands of miles.
Had this been prearranged?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who made the contact with them? Was that Spotswood?
It was probably Spotswood.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it was a little frustrating when we found out.
You never got an album?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But we probably could have gotten it earlier. And the second one,
Well, let's start with the first trip. Let's go on down further on. You did the Louisiana Aces sessions.
yeah, I think those were the two.
Was that just it? Okay.
I'm pretty sure that was it.
And that was the one you did in DL's house.
Right.
Okay. You talked about.
I'm not real sure. I'd have to really think about it. But the other trip involved the Carriers, the Zydeco group that I don't remember. I'm sure those recordings weren't that good. The Oak to Clark. I'm not sure if that was a second trip or a third trip where we did Corville and McGee with Mark Savoy. I remember that. It was pouring when we did that, and we're not quite sure. I haven't listened back to that since.
Where'd you record it?
That might have been over at Mark's, I think, or maybe in Sadie's store, but it was just, not in a studio.
And how about the Carrier brothers? Where'd you do that recording?
I think that would have been at one of their houses.
Now, were these folks eager to get records out? Were they willing to get records out? I mean, how would you
I
characterize
think
their
willing. I don't think they, I think it was very strange, someone calling up and saying, we're down here and we would like to record you.
Okay.
I don't think it was anything firm, we didn't know what we were going to get. I think it was probably the first time that I had run the machine, so we didn't know what we were going to.
Was it just Dick working with you on doing the technical aspects of things, getting it?
Oh, Dick was usually doing more of the talking to the artists, and I was tending to do the machine.
Okay. And off to Clark, what was the story of that recording?
I think that was probably Dewey's idea. I'm pretty sure. Can't remember how
He
that
made the
came about.
introductions, as far as you know.
Yeah, because I don't think Spotswood didn't even come on that. He went elsewhere.
Okay. So what's the flying saucer story? You may as well tell it to the tape recorder, so we have a record of no.
Embarrassed myself.
Oh, okay.
No, Dick and Ellen Spotswood and I were driving back after one of the visits and saw this bright light up in the sky, and we stopped and looked up, and the light came closer, and it appeared to be flat and spinning and coming towards us, and we just got out of the car and just watched it for about half an hour, and it sort of stopped or didn't come closer, we waited for a long time, and then it seemed to get dimmer and disappeared. And next day there were things in the papers. We weren't the only ones that watched it. Yeah, well.
Did you ever work with Dewey up at Northern festivals, or bring him up here?
I think we put on a show from the Balfas at Paucine. We did a number of shows back then. I think we had the Holy Modal Rounders. We showed 2 John Cohen films. We had the Georgia Sing Island Singers. Club Passim, in contrast to Club 47, was much more singer-songwriter oriented, and we became pretty friendly with the people at Club Passim, Bob and Ray and Nowlin, and would sometimes just do shows on Monday nights when they were free. I think we had Roscoe Holcomb up too. No, maybe that was just the film, but I mean we did a number of shows that we just advertised ourselves.
Right. Sort of early on, or just in the 70s at least?
Mm-hmm. In the 70s.
So after Buckwheat, I mean, did Scott pretty much take over all the recording of the Zydeco artists?
Yeah, pretty much. I can't think of anything that I was really involved with there. I'd go to see shows and mention anybody that I had seen, but I think after a time, I think he brought in virtually all of the Zydeco acts after that.
Okay.
I can't think of any that he didn't.
One of the things I talked at length with, again, sort of surprisingly a little bit with Marion and Bill, and pursue this if you wish, is their own kind of political development, and going back into different kind of backgrounds and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would like that. Both of them describe themselves as being
Gold War conservatives.
conservatives, and you had a different background with your parents being politically active on the left to some degree. What was that? What was your political growth as a kid or a teenager?
Well, the first thing that I remember of any kind of political activity was when I was quite young and we were living in White Plains, and I remember sitting in the library and listening to the radio and waiting for Stalin to die. It was like a death watch. Very, very vivid memory, But my father was always on the left. I always asked him if he had if he ever was a member of the Communist Party, and he said, no, I don't know. He wrote a novel early on, probably in the 30s, with a protagonist ending up going off to Russia. And he was approached by a major film company about making the book into a movie, with the proviso that the protagonist went someplace else other than Russia.
Was the book published?
Yeah. And
what was his name?
Theodore Irwin.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said no, and it never became
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you a political high schooler or things of that nature?
Not really. It was a fairly apolitical time. I remember going to a Pete Seeger concert, and that was like my first. And I think one of the things that strikes me as a thing that got me into politics was Pete Seeger's song, and I'm sure it wasn't his, but it was the song about Van Doren, the quiz show song.
Oh yeah. I know the song you're talking about.
Fiddly-di-do-di-do, fiddly-di-do-di-dum, come along to the quiz show and join in the fun. And from there it got heavier into, Tom Lehrer, Wild West is Where I Want to Be, and Chad Mitchell Trio, and went to see the Pete Seeger show, and then I got some of the Folkways records of We Shall Overcome, and
So
I think I was
roughly
largely, yeah.
1960, give or take?
Yeah, 60, yeah, probably 1661. But I was actually politicized initially, largely through music. And I'm sure I heard things at the table and discussions, but at that time my father was not extremely political. He did change his name because he felt that as a writer he would be discriminated against by being Jewish at that point.
Oh, I see. Was the book published under Theodore Irwin?
Yeah, I believe so.
What was his?
Isaacs.
Okay.
So whenever you hear of an Irwin, if it's not my brother, we're not related. It's a very strange situation. People say, "Oh, I know Irwins."
Oh,
no,
everyone
I'm
else
not.
in the family is Isaacs.
Right, or something else, but
Yes.
not Irwin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. When you got to college, I know you met Bill immediately, or actually the summer before. I guess.
Before,
but,
yeah.
Did you become actively political then, or I don't know if you ever were? So. Bill's told me he was at varying points, although first with YAF.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. I actually knew somebody who was in SDS, but I hadn't been. I think, trying to think, I guess it was when my brother took me to my first protest. I remember that in New York. And we became more involved with the anti-war movement. That's when I think I started getting politically active and going to demonstrations. Went down to Washington. We used to come in from Worcester, where Mary and I were living there. I sometimes wore a football helmet in case we got hit on by the pigs.
Did you go to the Pentagon March, the Levitate the Pentagon?
No, I don't think we were.
Okay.
No.
They didn't succeed. But,
No. I doubted they would.
Yeah. Okay, so that was mostly post-college years, your graduate school years, I
Yeah.
guess.
Mhm.
Okay. And Rounder, I gather, what were your thoughts about I know that you yourselves were, you had a collectivist mentality. You put out statements to the effect that you were not merely non-profit, but anti-profit, which I thought was an interesting bit of hyperbole. What were your kind of explicit thoughts, if they existed, about Rounder as a political program in terms of the music itself? Was the Pegram record to you a political record? Other things of that nature.
I think later on. I don't think I thought of the Pegram record as political at the time.
Okay.
But as we developed, we certainly saw that we were not only the structure, but also what we were putting out was alternative to the common art scene or music scene. And I'm sure in our discussions with Archie, he made it clear how important it was that if you're doing something alternative, that you have to do it at least as well or better than what the other folks are doing, because there are so many obstacles in the way already, just in your choice of material and how to sell it and how to be able to exist.
How did the collective identity end or wither away, unlike the state? Your collective identity withered away. How would you trace the progress of that?
Well, for better or worse, I think part of it came from Peter Stamfel, and I think it's a double-edged sword. One, Peter came over once. I don't know if you got any of the Holy Motor Rounder or any of that background.
Yeah, I do. And I have the story you're going to tell me is about him telling you you're oppressing me or other people by not letting us work here.
Right. Yeah.
Without having to buy into your deal because I don't want to. Or something.
Right. He did not. I didn't hear him going that far, but I don't remember him going that far.
Well, I mean, just
that
a
was,
sense of I don't know that I want to own a record company and worry about it 24 hours a day, but this would be a cool job.
Yeah.
That's how I got it. Yeah.
I mean, it was. it was like, some of these people are working selling underwear who would much rather be working for you and working, with the music.
Right.
And that that you think that you're, that you're actually hurting them by not giving them the opportunity to work for you. It was also very difficult back in that period, and I imagine in many periods. I mean, we owned the company, but at the time we still had Bill's outside salary, and for a little while Marion's outside salary, and we were living in this house where we had very, very low mortgage payments. We belonged to food co-ops. We had our furniture from Salvation Army or Goodwill, I think it was Goodwill, and things that we found on the street. And we had, very simple needs for quite a while. We had no chairs in the dining room. We had a big a big board sort of like the size of a ping pong table on top of cinder blocks, and we all sat down on the floor and ate. And our expenses were really, really minimal. We were living in, welfare conditions for sure. And to get people who shared the same work ethic, the same politics, same food habits, and same musical, each time you add one of those things, it's like, trying to, it's hard enough to get married, to find one person, but each time you add this, it's like, when you speak to people in a 5 or 6 person group, every time you add one more stipulation or one more thing that you're trying to get, it makes it that much more difficult. And I think it had gotten to the point where every once in a while we'd run into someone who we thought would be really, really nice, but they didn't want to live like that.
Right. I remember a cartoon mocking the roommate wanted signs at the local food co-op or coffee shop in San Francisco when I was living there in the mid-'60s.
And they'd have a list of 20 things.
A list of 20 traits.
Yeah, right.
Lesbian, vegetarian, soy-based,
yeah, right.
cat lover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it became that, except it was, it's much more difficult when you're talking about, virtually everything. How you want to live, what you believe, what hours you want to work, and what music you want to listen to. With the exception of who you want to go out with after work, almost everything else is included.
Yeah.
So, adding to the collective under those circumstances with, even when we started taking salaries, I think it was like $2,000 a year, and, not a whole lot of people, found that really exciting.
Yeah. Is there a point where you yourselves turned the corner and felt, well, this has gone so far that at this point, nobody's going to sort of become an owner any longer. We're the owners, and this is it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Relatively early on, I think it's 73, I was looking at it last night, you put out your first explicitly, even before that, you put out the Molly Jackson record, which I guess was your first explicitly political record.
Yeah, probably.
Pardon me. And then you started the 4,000 series.
Right.
The first one was the...
Not Moving Day.
Yeah, the woman I'm going to talk to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you remember that project at all, or how it came to you? About the doing of it?
Don't remember how it came to us. I remember we did it out at Angus, which is the same studio, ironically, that we did Aunt Molly Jackson. I'm sorry, Almeda Riddle.
Okay.
So, what quite a range on those two. I remember they're wanting very much to have a woman engineer, which was, pretty unusual at the time. And
hard to find.
It was at that point.
Yeah.
You know, now it would be very easy. Not as easy as some other fields, but things have changed dramatically in that area. I remember them being fun sessions. Everybody was really excited and very, very positive, and
You're talking about the musicians themselves?
Yeah.
Or you? Were you, Bill, and Marion all there, or just you?
I think we probably all were. Maybe not for every overdub, but
Right.
for a lot of it. Mm.
Do you remember getting any feedback from that record in particular? Because it was some of the women were local, unlike the Molly Jackson record, which was.
Well, they weren't particularly low. I mean, New Haven.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I guess they ended up living here now. Or
Yeah,
two
right.
Did.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Maybe switch to
Mhm.
something else, at least for the time being. I
Mhm.
don't have other questions, but I'm going to switch complete gears a little bit. When I was talking to Mark Wilson about his the traditional records that he makes for you.
Right.
He's very hardcore. He's very hardcore.
Mhm.
He was openly disdainful of the Holy Modal Rounders,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is the source of your name. And,
Right.
Uh,
And our introduction to old time music.
and I'm sorry.
Introduction to old time music.
What do you mean by that? You mean this?
Well, when we saw them, when Bill and I saw them in the summer of after our freshman year,